Welcome to the Lifestyle Chase. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. Proudly hosted by me, Chris Little. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to episode 37 of the Lifestyle Chase. Here I am honored to be joined by the one and only Jordan Aimoe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. What time is it there?
It is almost 5 p.m.
Damn, and then it's like almost 9 a.m. over here, so that's a little perspective. So
Yeah, a little different.
tell our listeners where you are talking to me from.
I'm currently in Cairo, Egypt.
So if I was to tell you that you were going to be in Cairo like 10 years ago, what would you say?
I would have said that sounds really cool
I guess
because
that's
Egypt's always been a place that I've really wanted to go to. I mean, I probably wouldn't have believed you. I would have been like, "Oh, that's all," but I think the idea of it probably would have excited me at the time, slash terrified me.
Yeah, totally. So I want you to paint a picture of your week. Like how do things go for you in Egypt?
To be perfectly honest, like it's pretty similar to what my life, well, like as far as my work day, it's pretty similar to what my work day would be like in Canada, with the exception of in Egypt, the school weeks are Sunday to Thursday
Yeah.
instead of Monday to Friday. So we get picked up at about 6:30 in the morning by a bus that takes all of the staff because we live in a place called Madi, but it's about 45 minutes away from where our school is. So we get picked up in the morning on the bus and then driven out to our school, get there at about 7:15. I kind of just, I don't know, get myself ready for the day and take a couple of breathers, maybe do some jumping jacks to get my blood flowing, and then and then the kids show up at about 7:30 and the school day starts at about 8 o'clock.
Nice, nice. So what do you do for fun? What's your activities that you do just to fill your own cup?
Yeah, just trying to. I'm only here if this is going to be my last year in Egypt, so I'm trying to see as much as I possibly can before you know, because I likely won't be coming back after I leave. So trying to see and do as much as I can before my time's up.
And I noticed you like to go on trips with your mom. So like, what's your favorite thing about going on those trips?
It gives me a chance to see my mom in a different light. Like she's always been like this person who's so confident and always knows what she's doing. So it's kind of fun for me to like see her out of her element a little bit and like meeting new people. And she's just like, for a lady who hasn't done a lot of traveling, she's just so go with the flow and such an easy person to travel with. And she's just so trusting of me and my decisions that she's just like, whatever you want to do, I'm down to do. And she's in really good shape, which helps. So she's really not limited to any, absolutely, like she can do anything. I could
Yeah,
have said, let's go climb Kilimanjaro, and she would have been the first one up.
that's awesome.
So,
Whose idea
yeah,
was it? Yours or hers?
mine. So she basically says, like last year, it started last year. She basically said, she gives me a time where she's coming to visit me. And well, I kind of find a time that works best for her to come, usually when I have some time off. And then I kind of just find a place that I think might be interesting. So last year we got a chance to go to Uganda and we trekked up into the mountains and hung out with some mountain gorillas for about 2 hours.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, we've been able to do some pretty amazing things, and we're already starting to figure out what we're going to do next year. So
Nice, nice. Is it under wraps or can you do the big reveal?
it's not under wraps. I just don't know 100%. We're talking maybe Japan, maybe Vietnam. Just kind of depends. I'm not 100% sure exactly where I'm going to be yet. So it'll depend on that. But somewhere in Asia, for
Nice.
sure.
So, what's your overarching vision for yourself as a teacher? Like, it seems that you have something in mind because, like, you're not sure where you're going to be at. Like, you've been in Egypt. You like what's your career been like from the start, and where do you see it going in the future?
Um, I always knew I wanted to go abroad. Um, that was always kind of like, maybe I didn't always know it, but I think definitely once I took a trip to South America after my first year of teaching, and I just loved it so much. And I remember thinking, like, I met a guy on the trip who was living in Brazil. He was Canadian, but living in Brazil, and he was teaching there. And he's like, "Oh man, it's you got to do it." So like that kind of like pushed me in the direction, and it did take me an extra year to do it. Like that the first step of actually going and doing it is the hard one. Once you make that step, it gets, I mean, it's a lot easier after that. But I always knew I wanted to go abroad. And now that I am, I really don't see myself coming back and working in Canada for probably at least another 3 to 5 years, barring anything crazy happening back home, of course. But yeah, it's just so easy. Like it's a lot less stress, and I'm essentially getting paid to check out new countries. So it's just there's a lot of benefits. So right now my plan is to stay abroad for as long as I can. Hopefully convince some other friends, teacher friends to come and join me so I'm not so lonely, but
What are the biggest obstacles aside? Like you talk about being lonely, but what are the other biggest obstacles of working outside of Canada?
it's just, I mean, here especially was a major, like, I wouldn't say it was a culture shock so much. It's just like, it's really an adjustment. Like, they do things so differently here. And, like, for example, like, and I mean this with no disrespect to like the Egyptian people at all. They're just like not the most efficient people in the world. So things like in Canada, things are so well organized, and like you drive, you stay in your lane, you stop at red lights, like things like that. Here, that's not a thing. Like you drive on the highway and there's no lanes really. Everyone's going every which way. Like you'll see typically at like a store or like maybe a coffee shop, what should be maybe a 1 or 2 person job, you'll see like 8 people doing not really sure what. And like it's kind of the same with the school. There's a lot of staff at the school that I could not tell you what they do. So like that kind of stuff is like, it's one of those things where I kind of have a rule. Like all the new teachers that came this year, my rule is don't ask why, because it doesn't make sense. It will not make sense. You just kind of got to go with the flow, or else you'll get really frustrated. Like it's a place that if you let it, it can be very frustrating and really like be annoying. But you just got to understand, like you're in their country, and they do things their way, and they're not here to change it for you. You just got to adapt and adjust. So that took a while. I felt like I wasn't really fully adapted until about May last year, like fully comfortable, everything figured out. So it did take me a while. So like that. And of course, like the time difference is hard, like trying to set up a time to like talk to my parents and friends back home, and just not having like the same kind of support system here. Like, of course, I've met people and I've made some really good friends, and that's nice, but it's not quite the same as, your friends that you've been friends with for 10, 15 years, not having your parents. So that kind of thing. Also not having pets. This is the first time in my whole life where I haven't had like an animal to come home to, and that surprisingly difficult actually. So
Yeah, that's so true. Like dogs and cats and any other pets like mean so much to people, and you don't know what you have until it's gone.
totally, it makes a huge difference having like a little furry friend to greet you at the door. Like I feel like I took that for granted. So when I go home, I'll be making sure to spend as much time as
Yeah,
possible.
totally. So I want to talk about role models. Now, these can be parents, these can be anything, anyone in your life who really has a huge impact on you for a long period of time. And I want you to list off 5 qualities of each one that stand out to you. So maybe like pick two, three, four people kind of thing.
Okay. I mean, for me, definitely without a doubt, my two biggest role models are my mom and dad. And I know
Hmm.
that's a pretty cliche answer, but I mean, I'm who I am and I'm doing all these things that I'm doing all because of them. Like I think, especially as a teacher, you see it so much. You see these kids that have these or these parents that have like failed them, whether it's on like basic necessities, whether it's just not enough attention. And it's just like I never had to worry about that as a kid, and that makes such a big difference. So like for my dad, he is a very driven person. Like he's really motivated. He's now moving. He did 29 years of service in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Then he worked for 6 years for the Alberta government. And now he's just starting a new job writing up some curriculum at the Red Deer College, and he's making classes, basically designing classes for like a criminology class. So he's a man of many, many skills, and he does a really good job of, using the skills that he has in a way that, supports his family and supports his needs. He's also a big scuba diver. He's the big reason I got into diving. So he's really adventurous and he loves to travel. So that's part of the reason where my travel enthusiasm came from. He's hardworking, and it kind of just, that helped me become a more driven person. I see how much he works, or not how much he works, but how hard he works, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely like something that I aspire to be, and making sure that like any job that I'm doing it at a dad level, like doing it
That's
absolutely
awesome.
best. I'm not mailing it in for anything. So he's helped me with that. My mom is just an extremely independent, driven person. Like I won't disclose how old she is, but she's an older lady. She's in her 60s, but you'd never know looking at her. She's in absolutely incredible shape. Like she is just, as far as fitness goals go, like I remember walking, I was in Newfoundland with her, me and my friend Brian, we were walking up a mountain, and Brian and I were just huffing and puffing. I think I was 21 at the time. I was huffing and puffing, and my mom's like making full conversation, not out of breath at all. And I was just like, this is not okay. I need to finish this. There's no way my mom should be in this much better shape than me. So she kind of motivated me to like get in a little bit better shape. And she just, again, super hard worker, she's a veterinarian. So she's a really good pet owner, just an all around really good, really independent woman, just somebody I never really have to worry about. She's just always has it figured out. And when I need something, she's the first person I talk to. I don't know, I was really lucky to have two parents that worked really well together, and whatever my mom's not, my dad is, whatever my dad's not, my mom is. So we kind of got the best of both worlds in that. So yeah, I'm just incredibly blessed to be able to have them as my parents, and definitely my biggest role models.
That's awesome. How about your siblings? Because you got a few siblings, hey?
Yeah, two brothers. I have an older brother and a younger brother. Again, like I see a ton of like characteristics that they've gotten from my parents as well. Like my younger brother Reese is in his I believe he's got a year left of he's doing Bachelor of Science. He's doing like environmental sciences, and he's just another dude that's extremely motivated. Like I can never think of a time in my life where he was without like income, you know what I mean? Like people go through those stages of like where they're in school and they're like eating the 80-cent noodles just to get by for the week. But he's always just been a guy that's been very savvy with his money, always working hard and like finding good deals and making good connections. So I respect that about him. And my oldest brother Lucas is an RCMP officer, and he's a guy that I really look up to fitness wise. Like he's in really good shape. He's a big boy. And he kind of gives me got me into, I was never really big into the gym scene, like I always cared about staying in shape, but the gym was just something I never really had a lot of interest in. And he kind of got me like a little bit more into it, and like showed me some good workouts. Anytime I wasn't sure about something, he was a guy that I could call and ask. And he was always very patient, which I know is not easy for, you see like trainers at the gym that are like really intense. For an intense guy, he was always really patient with me, which was nice because he knew I don't really respond well to like the yelling and stuff. So he knew.
Not many people do.
He knows how to motivate me without, being a dick about it,
Totally.
So,
Totally. That's
yeah.
awesome. So at what moment did you decide to yourself, I'm going to go to school to be a teacher?
To be honest, I think I've known for a long time. I remember like I lived before I moved to Red Deer. I lived in Ottawa, and I remember even then like just always being like more like always just having a knack with younger kids. I just had like a kind of a different ability with them, and like they kind of got me, and I got them, and like I'm a little bit weird, and sometimes adults don't really get it, but kids do. Like they laugh at all my jokes. So I can't really say there was a specific moment, just probably for as long as I can remember. That's a big reason why I started working at Kasota as well, is because I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and that looks really good on a resume. And then once I got locked into the Kasota life, it was just, I knew that was it for me, and I just didn't look back at all. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's neat and it's funny because I've found myself friends with a ton of teachers, and it's because of that Camp Kasota connection. It's just most of them did become teachers. And then I'm like, well, maybe I should have become a teacher. But like, I'm okay with being a trainer because it's kind of the same thing, except it's just like a never ending
true,
gym class kind of thing.
true, yeah. Sure, you're
So,
dealing with less like shoe tying and stuff, and like nose blowing with
yeah,
your job.
it's
So
it's
that's
pleasant. I enjoy that part, the no nose
nice.
blowing. What are five things that you think being a camp counselor contributed to your skills as a teacher?
I think like flexibility for sure. Like especially here, like it's so just like it's such a disorganized school, and it's a disorganized. I don't want to say it's a disorganized culture. It's just very like go with the flow here. Like it's not like Canada where things run on a specific schedule. Like the bus is coming at 10:08, where it's just like things are 15, 20, 30, however many minutes late. And like camp helped me with that too, because you have to be flexible. Maybe I have 6 kids, but one of them's got OCD, another kid's got, you know, autism. You have to be able to adapt to those things. So like definitely taught me the flexibility, patience for sure. Like that's without a doubt the most important skill that a teacher needs is patience. Like if you don't have patience, you should not be in a classroom. And I'm sorry to all the impatient teachers out there, but I truly believe that. And camp definitely taught me that. As well as just like creativity. Like like you and I are both blessed with the Creative Counselor Award on our dressers, and like a big part of that is because of camp. You're kind of like forced to like maybe it's a rainy day. We got to find something got canceled. You got to come up with something quick on the spot to entertain these kids. So like just being able to think on the spot, camp was huge for that. And just like the camaraderie, like being able to work as as a team player, like in any like most of my job is usually just me with the kids, but like it's such a huge network of a school. You have to be able to like rely on each other and make the team connections that way. So yeah, those are all skills that I without a doubt can attribute back to my camp days for sure.
That's awesome. So, when has been a moment when your experiences as a camp counselor have helped you the most in your career as a teacher? Like, because we all have this point where it's like, thank God I went through that experience because I really needed it right now.
I think the two biggest things for me is just like being able to the enthusiasm that I got from camp, like knowing that you have to be this high energy, enthusiastic all the time, like that's really been something that I've brought into my classroom, and it's really helped me develop good relationships with my kids. Like they're excited to be there, like they see Mr. Jordan singing and they start singing, and like just be able to have that influence on the kids, and like I look back at like I taught a couple music classes last year, and I'm always going to my camp songs for music class. And I think back like, oh, thank goodness for camp, for that. And just like the connections I've been able to make from camp and the people that I've met, like I've gotten my first teaching job was because of Kathleen Reed, who I met from camp. Like she hooked me up because I knew her and she knew I was, pretty good with kids. So like that was another moment. It's like, and it's kind of funny because I really didn't want to go to camp. It wasn't my idea. It was all my mom's idea. She's like, you're going to be a teacher. It's going to look good on your resume. And I just had no interest in going to a camp, especially like a Bible camp. Like I'm not a big religious guy. So like, it just didn't seem like a thing I wanted to spend my summer with. But she basically forced me, kicking and screaming, dragged me there. And it took me probably all of, 2 hours after I met you, after I met Keenan, after I met Dusty. I was pretty hooked.
Yeah.
And I remember just being so excited to go back. So just like the excitement that camp brought me, I feel like I've brought that into my classroom, and just having a job that makes you feel excited is really important.
Yeah. Well, I remember that moment, like when everybody got there, you looked pretty pissed off. But then when you were happy, like it showed and it resonated and made it more fun for everybody else to work there because like you were passionate about it. And so then when I saw your journey unfold and then you became a teacher, I was like, hell yeah, he's a teacher. That's what a teacher looks like. Like your passion with the different kids, like just their different backgrounds and your ability to relate was amazing. You're in it for all the right reasons, which I really like. What are 5 things that you put into every week as like a non-negotiable? Like you need to have these things happen in order for you to stay afloat as a human being.
Oh, without a doubt, top of my list is exercise. Like there's some days that it's less so this year. I had a really tough group of kids last year. I taught grade 7 last year, and my hat goes off to people that teach grade 7 on a consistent basis, but it was just a hell of a year. They were really tough kids. And I felt a lot of my days, I was sitting on that bus home and I was just pissed off, and after a good, hour and a half at the gym, it's amazing how good you feel. And it's crazy to me that like we as humans, we have this ability to literally create happiness by like just moving our bodies around. And it's crazy to me how many people don't take advantage of that. So that's definitely for me the biggest thing is exercise. I try to go I'm at the gym usually 3 to 4 times a week, and every Thursday we're playing floor. A lot of the teachers stay after school and play some floor hockey, so that's like another thing that really helps me get through my week. Like, Thursdays here is floor hockey time. Eating healthy, I make sure I try to make a point of doing that because food is really cheap here, and it's really easy. There's something called Otlaw, which is essentially like skip the dishes. You can just have it. You can have pretty much whatever you want sitting at your doorstep for you when you get home from school. So it's really easy to like kind of get sucked into that lifestyle. So like I try to make sure I'm cooking healthy food, and that's definitely a big thing. Just saving time for like games. My roommate Oliver, he loves games, like board games. So we're playing crib. He's got like, you should see it. We have a game cabinet that is just riddled with 30 different games. So like
That's awesome.
So that kind of thing. Just making sure that like at the end of the day, it's a job. It's like anything. It's really easy to allow yourself to get sucked into like doing tons and tons of work and burning yourself out. Like at our school, we've lost 5 teachers this year because they just, number of different reasons, but one girl just left because she just overworked herself. So just making sure that I have a nice balance between life and work is definitely the biggest thing that I keep in the back of my mind for sure.
Absolutely. Makes sense. So when you're looking for new leadership, new insight, aside from obviously like your people that you look up to, your parents, what do you look for resources? Like, do you read books? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you like go to seminars? What do you do?
Definitely podcast guy. I have a lot of podcasts downloaded, and that's the nice thing about our bus ride is it gives me some time to, listen to some books. I wish I read more. I shouldn't say I wish. I should read more. Like I have the full ability. Whenever I have a book, I'm always happy that I'm reading it. I just have a really hard time starting books. Once I start a book, I have no problem finishing it. It's just like I could read this book, or I could sit and watch Netflix or whatever. So definitely podcasts. Books are something that I'm trying to get more into as well. Just I follow a lot of different things on Instagram that kind of like whether it's, I'm a big wildlife fan. So like, I'm always like learning new things about this kind of wildlife and that kind of wildlife. So, and my roommate is just a wealth of knowledge. He's a guy that really inspires me because he's always trying to learn. Like whenever he's watching something on YouTube, it's not like, oh, look at Demi Lovato lip sync. It's like, he's like learning he's already mastered French, English, Spanish. He's working on Arabic right now. He's just so like, I'm always trying to feed into his knowledge a little bit too. So just having the people around me that, provide that stuff for me helps as well.
It's awesome. It's so important too. So is your roommate a teacher with you?
He is, yeah. He's from France.
Nice.
He's a grade 5 teacher.
So are all the like is it an even spread with all the teachers and where they're from, or is there one country that they tend to all come from?
It's mostly Canada because it is a Canadian school.
Yeah.
So it's like probably 90% Canadian. There's like one or two Americans and then my lovely French boy.
That's
But
awesome.
it's mostly Canadians though. So yeah, it's kind of funny. You meet people like there's a girl here who's teaching grade 1 at our school, and I worked with her for like 3 years back in Red Deer. And another girl that I went to university with at U of A. So it's just like it's kind of funny how small of a world it is, and you have to kind of move to a new continent to like get to know somebody that you already kind of knew.
Yeah. That's always how it works. It's such a small world. So, if you could list off 5 rules that you would give yourself for living your days as best you can, because it's such a small world and we want to treat people really well, what are 5 rules that you would give yourself to kind of set yourself up for the best case scenario kind of thing?
I just think for me the biggest rule is just don't be a dick. Like
Totally.
it's just like you don't understand, like especially in like I mean I really see it. Obviously this Egypt is like a fairly impoverished country and very third worldy, and like especially here, go out of your way to like do little things to help people, like whether it's even something as simple as like a high five. I remember I high fived a guy last year, and I saw him again like not that long ago, and he like remembered the high five. He like went out of his way to come and give me a high five, like little things like that. Just like go to your way to just try to brighten up people's day a little bit more. That would be probably my biggest thing. Second thing is just I'm all about not really, I'm a very minimalistic person. Like if you saw my wardrobe, I have like my kids constantly comment on like my 5 shirts that I have. So it's like, don't buy stuff, buy memories, or like get memories. Like I'm all about just like absolutely making the most of my time, that if I, God forbid, drop dead tomorrow, then I can at least be like, I feel like I really made the most of my time here. So that would be another thing. Just try to do and see as much as you possibly can. I think another thing is just keep in contact with people, like reach out to people here and there. Like even if you haven't talked to them in a while, like we don't talk to each other all the time, but it's nice that we can like connect and reconnect and like share, our dreams and ambitions with each other and support each other.
Totally.
Like that kind of stuff. I think those are kind of the biggest things for me.
Yeah, no, that's good. And yeah, it's so true. Like I want to tell the listeners, like you have a blog. Like you're a great writer. So if somebody's looking to read about your writings, how would they find them?
It's all on my Facebook page. But I basically it's on WordPress. So that would be the biggest thing. You could just go and if you Google my name, it will probably come up, to be honest.
Yeah,
I haven't done too many noteworthy things, so my Google page is it wouldn't be too hard to find. So that would be my biggest suggestion.
totally. I'll put a link to your WordPress blog thing in the bio for sure. Because it was so neat to see how good of a writer you are and like to share in your experiences. And I think it's great perspective for anybody that's on like a similar path with their career, but different path with where they are in the world kind of thing, just to see that, hey, like if I had a shitty day, look what this guy had to do. Like, it's helpful.
Right.
So I have,
Yeah.
what's that?
Sorry, I was just saying. Like I think the purpose of the blog is mostly for my family back home, just to know kind of what I've been doing. But it's also like I spent a lot of my time here going like, why aren't more teachers doing this, like, so it's kind of also to help try to motivate people that maybe need that extra little push. Cause like it took me a year longer than I expected to go abroad. And like, it was obviously the best decision that I made for myself. And I know it's not for everybody, but there are people that are just like kind of need that extra little push. So that's kind of what it's there for as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I perceive it too. I'm like, some people don't even know this kind of lifestyle exists. They don't know this is even an option, or they think it's so out of reach or so intimidating. But you kind of make it accessible for people, because sometimes that can revitalize a person's career, or sometimes that can be the experience that changes their life completely.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
So I have some tough questions for you here. Brace yourself.
Okay.
What is your favorite Taylor Swift song and why?
What is my favorite Taylor Swift song and why? Okay. My favorite Taylor Swift song is definitely Our Song. And because that song will forever remind me of the summer of 2009 at camp. Because I think I'm pretty sure every single week at Talent Show, me, you, Dusty Keenan, or a variety of that mix would stand up and sing it.
Yep.
So like whenever I hear that song, I have no choice but to instantly be all the way back to summer of 2009. That and the How I Met Your Mother theme song immediately always takes me back to camp. So it's like, it's kind of nice. And it's interesting how songs can do that. Hey, just like immediately send you back to like a time.
Yeah, like music is powerful, and it's especially a theme in my own life. Like I have so many songs that have such a greater meaning than what a person may think. And it's neat how music can do that. So are you still a pretty big Taylor Swift fan? Like you keep up with her new stuff or not so much?
Here and there. I wouldn't say like I'm a huge fan, but like I check in. I see how she's doing every once in a while.
It's good. You need to do that, man. You need to.
Yeah.
What kind of music do you listen to now?
I'm big into I love Queen. Queen is definitely my favorite band. Listen to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I just actually, a few of us just went and watched them live at the Pyramids last weekend, which was unbelievable. So we've been on the Red Hot Chili Pepper train for a while. Just I don't know, kind of just Beatles, old stuff mostly. Like the new pop stuff. Some of it is here and there, but it just doesn't really I don't know, doesn't really jive with me as much as the older stuff does.
Yeah, you're an old soul. What did you think of the Bohemian Rhapsody movie that came out? What did you think?
So it's funny because we watched it here in Egypt, and the thing about Egypt is like they really censor movies. So like any gay stuff at all, like any sort of reference to homosexuality, which of course in that movie there was definitely some, was just cut out. So I think that movie was probably about 30 minutes, 40 minutes shorter than it would be normally. Because like there'd be times where like we'd be sitting in the movie theater and be like, okay, wait, who's this guy now? Like it would just like kind of make no sense. It would just like cut from one scene to another. So I really liked it, but I am looking forward to watching the real movie because I got like the Egyptian censored version.
No kidding.
It's kind of funny.
So it's interesting that we segued into that because those are dynamics that are going to be an interesting adjustment. What's it like having that for like the cultural norm, and you're working with kids and you have your ideals and they have their ideals? What's that like?
Man, it still is really hard, but it was especially at the start. I remember probably 2-3 weeks into the job last year. So I'd only been in Egypt at this point, maybe a month. And I remember saying something to my grade sevens, like something along the lines of like, oh, well, there's nothing wrong with homosexuality. In fact, like in Canada, we celebrate it. And I remember before I even got off the bus home, I probably had 5, 6, 7 emails from parents saying, why would you tell my kid homosexuality is okay? You are in Egypt, blah, 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 blah. So like, that was like, really, yeah, I mean, that was eye-opening for me. It's kind of like I have these opinions that I obviously in Canada, you're allowed to say them and be open about them. But here, you just almost can't have an opinion. It ended up just me saying like, oh, instead of being like, we don't use the word whatever for like, they would use a lot of, especially my grade sevens, they would use a lot of like derogatory terms for homosexuals and like, obviously in Canada, I'd be like, no, we don't do that. But here it's just like mind your own business, you know? It's like that's pretty much as I can go into. And like anything, like we had anti-bullying month in February. And obviously, like usually when you're talking about bullying, you talk about the subject of like maybe suicide. Like that's a huge thing that can come from bullying. But here you can't do it at all because like suicide is like a very much against the religion. Homosexuality is very much against the religion. So like kind of finding things that like there's a lot of little things that you'd never know. Like throwing out any amount of food is very against their culture and their religion as well. So like I learn a bunch of different little things. Oh, also this, like when you call somebody over with your finger and you usually use one, you have to use your whole hand here because for whatever reason this is offensive. Like just one finger and the bottom of your feet. Also, like when you're sitting, you can't show the bottom of your feet. Like that's a big thing here. Again, I don't ask why, but that's my rule. I just go, oh, okay. It's just like it's a learning process, and you get yelled at in Arabic a couple times, and you start to figure out like, oh, okay, and you start to ask, some of my Egyptian friends or some of my people that have been here for a few years, and they explain it too. But yeah, it was definitely an adjustment, and I'm still constantly learning new things, but. It's when I left Canada, my whole purpose was to go to somewhere different. Like I just wanted something different. I didn't really care where, just somewhere different. And that's exactly what I got. Very, very different. So
Very, very different.
yeah.
So knowing all these things, like you're used to Canada. Like Canada, we're pretty lucky to be here. What are your 5 favorite things about Canada? Things that are unique to this country that you really notice now?
The biggest thing, and maybe not so much unique to Canada, but the biggest thing without a doubt that I miss about Canada is the air, the fresh air. It's just like here, it's just like, especially living in Cairo. Cairo is the 3rd most polluted city in the world, apparently. So it's like the equivalent of smoking a pack of cigarettes a day is what they say, walking around here. So like that obviously as like a person that doesn't smoke and like doesn't want that stuff in my body, it's like, that's so like I made sure like when I was home last summer, I just was breathing in a lot more than I probably normally would. So fresh air for sure. Just like the freedom of speech for sure. Just like being allowed to like say your opinion and people maybe not agreeing with it, but just they respect it, for the most part when you're not on the internet anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Those 2 things for sure. Just like the way, and again, like I'm not trying to make generalizations, but like the way the women are treated here is not like for example, I was at a restaurant today with my girlfriend, and she paid the man for our meal, and there was change, and so he gives me the change back, even though she was the one that paid. Like things like that. Like they'll like, and when we're like our dive master, when we go diving in Sharm el Sheikh, whenever he has to talk to us about something, he only addresses me, Mr. Jordan. He only looks at me, only talks to me. Like I make the decision. She doesn't have a say, like things like that. That's obviously like, ooh, we don't do that in our country for the most part. I mean, obviously there's
anomalies, but yeah, like
there's anomalies, of course. But as a general rule of thumb, women are celebrated, they're worshipped, they're treated for the most part pretty equally and pretty fairly in our country. Whereas here it's like if a woman wants a divorce, they have to jump through so many hoops to make it happen. Like you'll see women that are wearing the full niqab, which is like literally all you can see is their eyes. Like their heads are covered. They're completely veiled. All you can see is their eyes. And it's just like the men don't have to do that at all. And like the girls from my school are constantly getting catcalled. Sometimes they're getting grabbed. It's just like, so that for sure those are the biggest ones.
Do any of them sort of know what life is like elsewhere, or is that just the norm? They're used to it and that's just the way they exist?
Most, that's just the way it is. They're just like, it's a man's world here. I do what I'm told. I'm just like a servant to my man, essentially. And they've just kind of accepted it. Like you would never see, like you'll see men praying all the time. Yeah. Like men can go and pray pretty much anywhere. They can pray praying on the street. They can pray in the restaurant. but women can't. Women
Yeah.
are not allowed to pray. Women are not supposed to pray in front of men. They're not supposed to pray in front of other people. It's just like, yeah, the rules are just different for them for whatever reason. And it's just, again, it's just the culture. It's just like, again, it's just something you adapt to, and you don't have to like it, but you do have to respect it, unfortunately.
It's wild. And like I'm looking at it from my perspective, and I've seen Canada make a lot of adaptations over the years, and there's so many dynamics to culture and stuff, and just trying to treat everybody respectfully, because it always comes with some type of backlash. But is there any kind of adaptations that are happening in Egypt, or does it seem pretty like stagnant, like no change?
I will say, I think they're trying a little bit harder for special needs. Like, special needs is a very taboo thing here. So one weird thing about Egypt is, if, let's say, if I live in Egypt, I have a son, my firstborn son, it should be getting my inheritance. When I die, he gets my inheritance. But if he's special needs, has any sort of cognitive, physical, any sort of disability at all that money to the government. Doesn't get a dime of it. So a lot of parents are, and I don't really blame them, to be perfectly honest. Like, a lot of parents are straight up denying that their kid has any sort of disability when they clearly do. Like, I had a kid in my class last year who definitely had some sort of cognitive delay, but like there was nothing put in place for them. You know, like in Canada, there'd be like an individual education plan in place. You'd have all these goals for them. You'd know what their diagnosis is. You'd have ways to help them. Here, there's no diagnosis. We have very few resources to help them. But I feel like that is getting a little bit better. Like, I'm actually seeing like posters of like, when we drive to school, we're passing by like tons of billboards, and there's one billboard actually that has, I don't know exactly what it says because it's in Arabic, but it has like 3 Down syndrome kids on it. And I was like, wow, I never saw anything like that last year. And apparently that's a thing they're trying a little bit harder at. But to be honest, it is pretty much just pretty stagnant. They stay the same, and like they hear suggestions, and like the thing is like it's very hard to complete things here. I find like they'll start buildings and then they'll run out of funding, so buildings will sit half finished for years until they get the funding to do it again. Like, and that's kind of like just a theme throughout a lot of the country, it seems like.
It's crazy. Crazy. Perspective is a powerful thing. Just like we
It
don't
is.
it's like pets. We don't know what we have until we know what it's like in other places, kind of thing.
Totally. And like, you know, my pets could use some perspective too. Like, if they came to Egypt and saw the shape of the cats and the dogs that are walking around on the street, I tell you, they wouldn't be complaining
Yeah.
anymore. That's,
They'd be like, I'm going back on the plane.
yeah, they have a good life. Yeah. So like, yeah, everybody needs a little perspective. And like, I mean, even here, I'm constantly just counting my lucky stars that I'm, you know, Canadian. I have just the fact that we were born in Canada, you've hit, you know, an absolute jackpot when you look around at the other, however, 195 countries in the world that have, like, you know, we're very fortunate, and a lot of people take that for granted. And that would be my biggest reason why I think people need to travel more, is like, if for nothing else, just go to like appreciate your own country and your own situation more.
And I
Even if
like,
you hate every second of it, you know,
yeah,
like, if you hate every second of traveling, you will go home with some peace of mind for sure. I'm like a new outlook, at least a little bit. I'm really convinced of that.
I like how you talked about like we hit the jackpot being born in Canada, because there's a lot of people who are coming to Canada for like a new hope kind of thing, and not everybody can display empathy in a way that is like, hey, like we are all humans, and this person just wants to live a happy life. So how would you encourage somebody to show more empathy, knowing what you know about other cultures and your experiences and in your travels? Like, I would say you're probably a fairly empathetic person, and how would you encourage other people to be the same way?
I think the biggest thing people need to do, like, I think a lot of like people that are unempathetic, it's mostly from ignorance. Like they just don't fully understand, and whether they're doing it on purpose or not, like ignorance is just like something that's really the biggest problem for the most part. Is like if you took a second just to, even like, I'm not saying, oh, let's get up and let's all go travel to Syria to understand it, like watch a documentary, have a conversation with some of these people, like do any amount of research, and that will help you. So like if you saw what some of the people, like the Syrians that are coming over, had to deal with, you would not say a word. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, and that's the biggest frustrating thing, is it's like a lot of it is coming from people that don't know and are usually like not really willing to try to know, like it's just learn a little bit, and the ignorance will, like the more you learn, I feel like the less ignorant you become. And I just feel like most of the time people are okay with being ignorant and have no interest in, changing their mindset or their attitude. And I think that's where a lot of like racism or prejudice, sexism, whatever, any sort of discrimination comes from, I think.
Yeah, it sucks. I wish more people would be open to putting themselves in somebody else's shoes, because the world would
For
work
sure.
a lot better. So tell me about your, let's say, like elementary, middle school experience. Like, what was that version of Jordan like? Like, what were your days like? Your friends, your activities?
When I was in middle school, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh man, not I was a very, very bad student. Like I was never a bad kid, really. Like I was never like doing drugs. I wasn't like really drinking. I wasn't doing anything like that. I just did not care about my education. Like I just went to school. School was just a social thing for me. That's where my friends were. That's where I got to play sports for free. That's where I got to talk to girls, this and that. Like I could not care. And like I was in the French immersion program, and like my biggest regret to this day is just like, why did I not take more advantage of that? I should have walked out of that class, because I started in grade 6 and I did it all the way to grade 12. So 6 years of like consistent French. I should have been graduating high school speaking French so fluently, but I didn't try. I didn't read. I didn't write. When I got a car, I didn't go. It's just like, I just wasn't a very good student. I was never rude to my teachers or anything. I just had a very, like, my teachers knew I didn't care, and like and they so constantly at my parent teacher interviews would they say, here's a dude that is super bright, has all the skills, has all the abilities to be a good student, and he just simply chooses not to. And like that was me probably until college. Like obviously when I got to college, but it made it so much harder for me in college. Like so many times in post-secondary, I was just kicking my past self for like, why didn't I learn study habits? I had to like, when you're in college, you should have all these skills already because you did 12 years of it. But I had to like reteach myself study habits, not even reteach, like teach for the first time, because I didn't take notes. I didn't study. I always procrastinated. So like, it was like a huge shift of like, yeah, I had to change a lot of things about myself when I went to post-secondary, or else I would have failed.
Yeah.
So I was like a teacher's like biggest pet peeve probably, just like a guy that like, and I see it all the time now as a kid, like as a teacher. And like, I try to preach it to them. I'm like, listen, like you have to be here. You have to come to school. So why would you not make the most of it? And like, that was definitely not something that I practiced when I was a student myself.
Do you find you're able to relate to a lot of those students better?
I am for sure. And it makes it even more frustrating because it's like, I know what you're doing because I was the same thing, and you're going to be mad at yourself.
Yeah.
Like, take it from me. Like, I try to tell them. And like, the thing is too, like, obviously all like probably 99% of our students are Egyptian.
Yeah.
So their first language is Arabic. And like, it's the same thing. I'm just like, I was in a similar position. I was in French immersion. My first language is English. So obviously it's nature, like it's natural to want to speak your first language. But had I tried to speak French more, I would have been better at speaking French. So this is why we get mad at you or tell you, we're not telling you that we don't want you to speak Arabic at all. Like, it's just when you're in our classroom, we're speaking English so you get better at English and you practice it. And like, some got it, like some, like I feel like made a more valiant effort, but it is like, it's frustrating to see it because I know I was the same way, and I know that they will like regret it later on because that's what happened to me.
Yeah. So with the structure of the school there, like you say, it's a Canadian school. What is the biggest drive to having a Canadian school in Egypt? What's the demand for it?
So Egypt is big time social class. Like if you're wealthy, you flaunt it. You're powerful. People look up to you, and they really taught. And so, like coming to a Canadian school shows your basically your social class. Like it's teach like their parents are paying all this money. Like I think our school costs, but I'm not 100% sure on this, but it costs about 10,000 American to send a kid to our school. So it's not cheap compared to like, we went to school for free until university, of course. But they pay all this money basically just so their kid walks out of there with a Canadian high school diploma. So it is definitely like it's a big social class thing. And a lot of the parents, rich parents, are sending their kids to international schools, whether it's American, British, Canadian. But it's definitely, yeah, it's a class thing for sure.
And what's the end goal for a lot of the parents with their kids? Are the kids going to be moving around the world, or are they staying in Egypt just with that social class?
I would say most of the kids at our school have parents that are like own businesses. So a lot of the kids will take over the business.
Yeah.
So which is why like you can tell which subjects, like especially by grade 7, like grade 2 they haven't really figured it out yet, but grade 7 they've kind of figured out like what subjects do I need. Like I need math. I definitely need math. So they all try at math. They respect math, but they also take French, like as an Arabic speaking, and then English as your second language. Most of these kids don't need French, will probably never use their French, and they know that, so they don't try at all in French. So it was kind of interesting. Last year I taught math and French. So like I would have for 1 hour, I'd have these kids trying super hard, doing their best at math. And then the next hour I'd have these kids that didn't care at all about French, wouldn't try, wouldn't do their homework, didn't study. So most of them will probably take over businesses, or go to university in Canada.
That's fair. Do you find that the ones that might be inclined to go to university are more open to like your values, or are they pretty set in their own and it's going to be a culture shock?
I think it'll be a culture shock for a lot of them, but the ones that I think are going to go to Canada are the ones that will thrive in Canada. Like they're open-minded, they're curious, they're inquisitive, and they would be able to go and adapt. Whereas like a lot of them would like, like you see like people, a huge thing here that drives me insane is the litter. Like, and it's just like, it's a lack of like, I don't want to say a lack of education, but it's just like, they don't fully understand the damage that they're doing to it's not uncommon to see people pull over to the side of the road, open up their trunk and just heave garbage over their shoulders, into just like an empty field or into like bodies of water or whatever. And like, so like, I think that going to Canada and just like understanding that, yeah, no, you have to put your trash in the garbage. That's what's expected here. Like my class was a constant mess last year because they'd finish food and they'd throw it on the ground because they knew someone would come and, clean up after them, or it wouldn't. And then it would just sit there, and they're cool with that too. So
It's wild. So talking about scuba diving, I want to hear the 3 most memorable moments that have happened to you while you've been scuba diving.
okay, well, number one for sure. Probably since I was like, I got my scuba license when I was 15. And ever since I was 15, I learned about this animal called the whale shark, which is the world's largest fish. And they're massive and they're so beautiful. And I just always wanted to see one. So like I would specifically go to places in the world to try to dive with them. And I just never had any luck until this summer. I was with 2 of my buddies in Maldives, and we came across 2 actually. So we got to dive with them for about 20 minutes. And that without a doubt is the highlight of my scuba career. Number 2 would probably be in Egypt. There's a wreck. It's called the Thistlegrom, and it's basically a World War II ship that went down it's a British ship that went down from like a bomber in World War II. So it sunk to the bottom of the Red Sea, and it's just a spectacular dive. It's like diving through a museum. You know, you're like, there's there's like tanks on it. There's motorcycles. There's trucks. It's like just diving through like an underwater museum. So I've done that twice now. I was lucky enough to do that with my dad when he came up. So that was pretty spectacular. And the third one would probably be just the first time I dove with, like, scuba diving is a passion that I share with not only my dad, but my two brothers as well. We're all big scuba divers. So it's not really maybe a specific dive, but just the fact that I have this kind of activity that, you know, we've gone to Honduras, we've gone to Belize, we've gone to Cuba, Mexico, all specifically for diving. And it's my dad, my two brothers and I. Sometimes my uncle joins as well. So it's just nice having, and actually this summer, my two brothers and I are going to Mozambique to dive. So it's just nice to have like we're all pretty different, but that's one thing that's always connected us and probably will continue to connect us for as long as we're able to dive.
That's awesome. What do you think got your dad's interest into scuba diving in the first place?
That's a really good question, actually, because he doesn't, like, nobody else in his family does it. He's just a dude that loves the water. That's where he has always been. Like, he's a really good swimmer. He swam like competitively for a bit and just did a lot of swimming. So he just, I don't know, just something that drew his interest. And I don't know when he got certified, back in the 80s. And it's just, never looked back, and got all his kids hooked on it too.
Yeah.
But just his love for the water, I think.
So 10 years from now, 10 years into the future, what does your life look like? Do you see yourself being a family man? Take us through the journey.
Oh man, that is a tough question. Probably, I mean, I would like kids at some point, I think, you know, like, I kind of go back and forth a little bit. I think I'd like to adopt kids, is I think what I see myself probably doing. So I think 10 years from now, hopefully I have, you know, a couple kids, and, you know, ideally a wife, and we're hopefully still maybe living abroad, maybe traveling. I'm not sure, but traveling will always be, I think, an integral part of my life, and something that will always, you know, I'll have a passion for. So hopefully I'll raise little traveling kids. But yeah, I think 10 years from now, I can see myself having a family.
Awesome. What about career? Still a teacher, or what does that look like?
I think so. Like last year was a tough year professionally. And there's definitely like some moments where I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, it's just not as rewarding as I thought it would be. Like, it's such a thankless job. Nobody appreciates it. The parents are always, you know, this and that. But this year has like I really enjoy my class this year. And I taught a grade 2 class in Sylvan Lake that was just like, we just gelled so well. And just like, I can't really see myself doing anything else at this point in time. So I would say 10 years from now, I'll probably still be teaching, but
good.
Who
That's
knows?
Good to hear. And you should write a book. That's what I think that you should do.
You gotta write a book, eh?
So talking about like teaching as a thankless job kind of thing, there is always going to be those moments though that stand out. Everybody has them. So I want you to talk about 3 times that have been just like, this is why I do what I do, and like maybe you reflect on them during your bad days. What are 3 moments that really stand out for you?
I remember my first full-time teaching job was, I took over for maternity leave in Sylvan Lake. I was teaching grade 2. And I remember there was this one girl in my class who just like didn't have like she was from a lower, like her mother, who was a really good mom, was really trying, but they just didn't have all the resources that most families have. And I just remember at the end of the year, I just got this really, really beautiful card from her mom, basically just saying like, because her dad's not in her life, like the dad's kind of out of the picture, so like doesn't have a lot of male role models. So like basically just saying how much my relationship with her daughter meant to her, and like how it's taught her daughter to like be able to like trust in men and this and that. So like, I don't know, just like getting those messages, like I made open it to myself, and I like had to shut it because it was like bringing tears to my eyes. So like little moments like that. I have a kid in my class this year who I met him last year when he was in grade 1, and he just seemed like such an angry little dude, and I couldn't get it. Like, he's 6 years old. What are you so angry about? And he was just like, I remember like the teacher that put his grade 1 teacher last year put him in my class, and she's just like, this is a kid that's really hard to make relationships with. I didn't really build a rapport with him, and it really didn't take us very long. And now we're like, I don't know, he's now saying he wants to be a teacher, just like Mr. Jordan, and we've just got such a good little relationship. And so it's like little moments like that, the little hugs, the thank yous. And yeah, it just, this year is a lot more, I feel like I'm a lot more appreciated this year than I was last year. But even actually last year, I was supposed to get moved to grade 3 in the middle of the year, because like I'm elementary trained, and the teacher that was in grade 3 at the time was higher elementary, like grade 7. So our principal was going to switch us in February. And I remember the kids had an absolute outrage. There was parents calling, the kids were crying, they were sending emails home. And like, that was kind of the first moment. And that was in February last year. That was the first moment where I was like, wow, these kids actually, I guess, kind of do like me, because they didn't really ever show it. But that was kind of a nice moment as well.
Yeah. It's good to remember those moments, because like life is short, and life is not always easy. And we need to have things to like look back on, perspective, things that remind us why we do what we do, or where our passion came from, kind of thing, right?
Totally.
Because I mean, like,
couldn't agree more.
With last year being a tough year, there's no doubt there'll be other tough years, and that's what I like about this podcast kind of thing. It's empowering other people through the lessons of others, kind of thing. What's been the toughest lesson that you've learned as a teacher? The thing that just stopped you in your tracks?
I just think, and I think this goes for like any person that's kind of new at their job, and like a lot of people leave university with all of these ambitions, and rightly so. Like, I mean, it's an empowering time to like be finished, your degree and ready to start a job. I think it's just the biggest thing is just like, don't try to change the world, like do your best, put your heart into it, but like, don't be sad when like last year I was like bummed that I wasn't making, the connections and the relationships with the kids that I usually can make. And it's just like, you know what, instead of trying to win 56 kids over, start with one, go to, and then move to a second. Like, just don't come in and try to, be the greatest teacher. Well, try to be the greatest teacher ever, but don't don't get down on yourself if you're not, or if you have a year where it's just not working. It's just not always going to work. And I think the biggest moment for me has just been like, I'm not here to change the world. I'm here to do my best and try to help kids out if possible. But at the end of the day, and it does suck to say, but like at the end of the day, they're not my own children. And if they want to be rude and they don't want to learn and they don't want to do this, then you know what? That's their battle to fight, and that's their parents' battle to fight. And you don't take it personally. I think it's really easy to like leave your day thinking like, wow, these kids hate me. And like a lot of teachers have been they're in grade 8 this year, my kids from last year, and like at least 3 different teachers have approached me this year and be like, how did you do it for a whole year? I have them for 70 minutes a day, and I've already cried 3 times in front of them. And it's just like, yeah, you know what? You can't take it personally, especially at an international school. Like, these kids have seen literally hundreds of teachers. Like, there's always new teachers coming in. So like, it is hard for them to like want to build up the trust and stuff. So like, the biggest thing is just don't take it personally. Do your best. At the end of the day, it's a job. You're getting paid for it. You're not going to die.
I like it. That's actually probably going to be pretty helpful for anybody that listens to it. Now, I'm curious, with you talk on potential kids and you talk about adopting, what inspires you to adopt the most?
First of all, the world is overpopulated already. So I don't feel like I need to add more to that. So I think my biggest thing is like, there's tons of kids out there that would do anything for like a really nice dad, and I think if I can, and I think I would make a really nice dad. And I think, I don't know, it's just something, it's not something that's always interest me. I think it's more so in the last couple of years. It's like I think that's something I want to do. I just think there's a lot of kids out there that would, be really grateful to have somebody give them the life that they deserve. And I'm blessed enough to be, from a good family and live in a good country that it's just, I don't know, it just would make sense for me, I think.
I like it. I like it. That's admirable. So, we are going to wrap this up with the last question. This is something that I ask all of my guests. So, if you could give one piece of advice on how to authentically live your life to the fullest, what would that piece of advice be?
My piece of advice would be quit talking about it and do it. Like the amount of people I heard say like, "Oh, you're one teaching abroad. That's so awesome. I thought about it, but then this and this happened and this happened, or I would love to do this, but just quit finding excuses to not do stuff and just do it. Just do it. Even if you hate it, I honestly believe even every experience, whether it's positive or negative, is still so worthwhile. So just go and get as many experiences as possible. Quit finding excuses. Make it happen.
That's awesome. That's great advice. I want to thank you for joining me all the way from Egypt.
Hey
Hopefully you
man,
had
it's
a
a
good
pleasure to
time.
be here. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. Nice chatting with you, buddy.
Totally. And we'll keep in touch. Talk soon. See ya.
You betcha. Bye.